one time we was on a date, and we come in, and he said, I guess the Lord was dealing with him then, and he was just kind of trying to get my thoughts on things, and he said, you know, what would you think about if I were a preacher? And this is before we were married. And I said, that ain't between me and you, that's between you and the Lord. I'll never forget that, because that kind of was like, whoo, that was a big, you know, because in my mind, you know, I was thinking at that time, I'd never marry a preacher, you know, that ain't ever going to happen or whatever. And so I kind of put that thought back in his court. But really, in all reality, that's who it's between anyways. It's between that person who's called to preach and the Lord anyways. Now, move on along. So we were married in 1982. And then on April 15th, tax date deadline, 1985, Erin Danielle was come along. And she was 2 weeks late. And it wasn't that I was going to try to get her here by tax date deadline. It's just that I was just really frustrated, because there was one lady at our church that I love dearly, still love her to this day, but she would always, her thing was, haven't you had that baby yet? And I mean, I was huge, and I thought, I can't go back to church ever again until I have this baby, because I can't listen to that. I can't hear that again. And so I was more upset about not being able to ever go back to church again than I was about having a baby, I think. But anyways, and Gerald thought it was the world, you know, we all was. Everybody was just crazy over it. Gerald's 2 grandmas came to the hospital to visit her, and they got so turned around when they left Jill to the hospital, they headed southbound. They was heading to Knoxville. And I think they got all the way to La Follette or someplace where they realized that, hey, we're going the wrong direction. But, and everybody, Erin had a head full of hair. I mean, all kinds of hair. And I remember some lady that didn't even know come by. My hair was real short back then. And she said, that baby, and I didn't know this lady, and she said, that baby's got more hair than her mother has. And I graduated in, Erin was born in April 15, 1985, and I graduated college in May in 1985. And I started teaching, now I'm really going to tell you my age, in the last one-room school in Whitley County, which was on the Bell County, Whitley County line, which is in Frakes, actually. And anyways, and it's not even there anymore now. They made it into apartments or something now, and they shut that school down, and most of those kids ended up in Bell County. But anyways, I had a 4-month-old baby. I was driving my car a long ways. I mean, I was having to leave home like at 5:15, I believe it was in the morning, because being at a one-room school, me and the bus driver actually were the only 2 there. And the bus driver was a lady, and she had 18, there was 18 children there from kindergarten through 8th grade. And she would get off the bus, and here they would come, and they were great kids too, by the way. Very respectful, they were all related some way. And the big kids kind of took care of the little kids, and I didn't know what to do, because I was a first-year teacher, and I had no experience to teaching kindergarten through 8th grade, all in one room. So the bus driver would let them off. She would go into the kitchen and prepare their breakfast. They would eat, and then I had them all day long, because she left after she did the dishes. And I had them all day long, and then she would come back and get them at the end of the day, and we would start over the next day. And so after about 3 months, I lost a whole lot of weight. And I was a nervous wreck, because I didn't know how much longer I could continue. It was work. I mean, and remember, that's what my parents had taught me. If you're going to do it, do a good job. So it wasn't like I just went up there and just hung out with them all day long. I really worked, and I mean, it was hard work. And so Ori Perkins was a good friend of my family's, and so he saw me at church, and he said, you look really rough. And I said, well, thank you. And he said, at that time, I think he was principal at the middle school, and he was my elementary principal at Poplar Creek. And he said, if anything else comes up, he said, I'm going to tell them at the board that you might take something else. And so sure enough, Gerald and I started praying about it. We started praying, and God answered that prayer. And so I got a phone call on a weekend, and Ernie Seiler was the superintendent at that time, and he said, Phyllis, he said, there's an opening, and I've heard that you might be available to take it. And he said, it's with the Gifted Talent Program in Whitley County. He said, you're going to have about 85 students. You and Lonnie Anderson will split those kids and you'll work with them. He'll take the middle school and high school kids and you'll have the elementary. And so Lonnie Anderson, who later became superintendent at the time, I think that was the last thing in his mind. He and I worked together with those students the remainder of that year. And so Aaron pretty much stayed with my mom and dad around the clock because I was going to graduate school at nights, and so we didn't have a whole lot of money as far as by the time class was over with for me to go home, so I just kind of hang around and go to college classes at night. George lost second shift jobs. When he switched ropers, when he finally was laid off from ropers, he took a job in Corbin, and his MSC was the name of it, and he worked second shift, so we didn't see him a lot. And, well, Erin did, but she was too little to remember a whole lot. And my mom always fed him every day before he got a second shift job. And we didn't see a hold of each other a lot from Monday through Friday. And because, you know, by the time I was coming home, he was gone. By the time he was leaving his job coming home, I sounded asleep. And so, and that went on for a long time. So sometimes me and Erin would pack a little, you know, picnic lunch, and we would drive up in the afternoons, you know, and if he got a break or whatever, he could come out and see us, you know. And then I started realizing that hurt him more than it helped him. Even though he liked to see us, he didn't want us to leave. You know, he wanted to come home with us. And so, you know, we started praying about job changes and whatnot. And once again, the Lord moved again. So, you know, that's another thing. You know, a lot of times people say, well, I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, I'm done praying. Don't ever get done praying. Because every day, even if it's the same prayer that you pray over and over and over again, He's always listening. Always listening. And it's just a matter of His timing, not your timing. And that's something that I've had to learn over my lifetime. It has to be in the Lord's timing. 7 years later, in 1992, Blake came along, and Blake Andrew was, he wanted to enter the world a whole lot sooner, like from the time that I started carrying him. It was like, you know, we knew there was going to be some issues with this child, and I don't mean that bad, Blake, but he's just like, every time I turned around, I was in the emergency room, I was in the hospital, and Drew, you know, that we prayed all the time. All the time. Church was always praying, and I know Drew was always praying. And anyways, Blake he entered the world early. You know, and like Erin, who was late, because she didn't want to get into the world. Blake couldn't wait to get out there into the world. And so he entered a little too soon, and he spent the whole first week of his life at Children's Hospital in Tennessee with his dad. Drew wouldn't leave him. And they wouldn't let me go until after 2 or 3 days, and I couldn't stand it no more. And I finally called him. I said, come and get me. I cannot stand looking at that empty baby bed. I said, take me to the hospital. And so he kept saying, the doctors won't let you. And I said, I'm coming anyway. But the nurses, that was one of the things they noticed. And they all made sure to tell me. They said, he sure has got a good daddy. He said, his daddy has never left his side. And so, you know, so Blake finally got to come home, and then we had one of each, and the fighting began because of the 7 years between them. So that's been an experience over, you know, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that, brothers and sisters too. Seems like it's just a blink, but you know.